I would like to welcome everyone to the Tuesday, November 8th, 2022 Evanston Preservation Commission meeting. I will call to order the meeting. We have a quorum with 7 commissioners present, and it is 7 o'clock. Okay, so I think everybody here is mostly familiar with the procedures for the meeting, so I'm not going to go into depth on that. But when we read your record into, or case into the record, if you could please step to the podium, introduce yourself, present your case, and then we'll ask questions, deliberate, and then come to call a motion. So with that said, why don't we just jump right into the first order of business under old business, which is 1215 Judson Avenue. It is the certificate of appropriateness to construct a single-story addition, an open deck at the rear volume of the residence. So go ahead, Thomas.
Hello, everyone. My name is Thomas Solomon. I'm the owner of Studio Tello Architecture, and you may recall that I presented this project last month. And took under advisement the comments that you all made, which, if we can kind of spin through the pictures, I can describe those changes.
You want me to go to the next slide from here?
Yes, please. Oh, unless I can do it from here.
Not sure if you can do it. Okay. Yep. Now it has to go up and down.
Up and down are not working.
Okay, so just go back to the center and I'll do the rest.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. You want me to stay here or continue?
I think the elevations would. So actually, one thing I can say is the volume has stayed the same. What we have changed, and I guess this would be better to see the elevations. We have the suggestion to change the standing seam metal roof to shingles, to asphalt shingles, to match the existing house. That change has been made. We added the simulated check rails to the casement windows, which was a suggestion. One idea that the owners had, which did not come from this body, but seemed like a good idea in light of the tenor of your comments, was to change the basement windows at the window wells to have a division 3/1 division with simulated divided lights to fit in more with the other basement windows. The materials are still the same, the lap siding with the mitered corners and the brick band at the bottom. The railing, as was suggested, was changed to vertical pickets. And I think the sticking point, if there seemed to be one, I know it was kind of a collection of issues, but one issue, probably if you want to look at the back, at the east, was the concern was about the I think it was the transoms, really. I think that's probably that's the north. Go to the east. There we go. So you can see on your left what's there now. No great loss for doing something a little bit different there, we think. I think the concern was about the proportion of the glass, and so we made the change to introduce divisions in the upper area there. So instead of 2 large trapezoidal windows, there are 4 windows there. And I think my sense, and I think, Susie, you mentioned this, the concern at the end was not that there was one big problem, but that there were a lot of little things that weren't adding up, and hopefully we've addressed those.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, questions? I do think that it very much took into account the comments from commissioners and nicely integrated those into the project, so we appreciate that work. If there are no questions, do the commissioners have anything they want to discuss, or are we in any way ready to make a motion? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion? Do I need to?
Sure.
Wait, thank you, John.
I move regarding 1215 Judson Avenue, Lakeshore District, 22 Pres-0187. We approve a certificate of appropriateness to Studio Tyler Architects to construct a single-story addition and open deck at the rear volume of the residence. Applicable standards, alterations 1 through 10, construction 1 through 5, 7 through 8, and 10 through 15.
Is there a second? Second. Stewart seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Excellent. Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Okay. We're going to move on to new business, to 1404 Asbury Avenue, a landmark in the Ridge Historic District. It is for an application for certificate of appropriateness to remove a rear elevation first floor mudroom addition and stair, remove a chimney, alter the fenestration, and enclose a first floor rear covered porch and construct a new covered entry and stair wood deck. So, Gary, if you want to take it away.
You want me to start here, Gary?
Yeah, that's fine, thanks. Hello, my name is Gary Shoemaker. I'm with Shoemaker Design Associates. I'm here on behalf of our client, George Epsitheo and Stacy Schulte, to present to you a project at 1404 Asbury Avenue. Sorry. This is a historic home on Asbury Avenue. I think everyone's seen it. It's in fantastic condition. We are very fortunate to have the opportunity to work on this project. Let's see, Carlos, can you? So we've prepared a series of renderings that show the finished product as we've conceived it, which is to, hold on one second, Carlos. Let me see if I can get there we go. So our addition is the back porch here. There's currently a sleeping porch on the upper level, an open deck on the lower level that's partially enclosed by a mudroom that was done some number of years ago, and an exterior stair which we've removed and reconfigured. We'll be enclosing the upper section of the sleeping porch with casement windows and transom windows using Marvin Ultimate Series landmark windows in order to make that four-season space. We are extending the kitchen into the existing open porch and through that mudroom space, and we're modeling a portion of the interior of the house over here to create a mudroom entrance and a powder room on the first floor. The cornice work is existing. It is our intention to shore and stabilize that existing dental work, crown molding, and roof system. It's in serviceable condition at this time, and rebuild everything below it, which is obviously exterior porch grade materials. If you give me the next slide, please. This is as if you were going down the side street, looking back over the fence toward the house. We've taken a number of details from the existing house. There's a bit of stonework, which we've replicated in some of the wing walls and along the garden walls and the base. We'll be rebuilding the existing brick piers. The skirting, the clapboard siding, and the details common to the house that continue around the water table will continue around the base of our addition. The paneling we've taken from the front of the house, which is the original porch. And the cornice work, as I said, will be retained or replicated. It's actually quite beautifully maintained at this point, short of a few squirrels have gotten to it. But if we could have the next slide, please. I think in your packet you can probably see this a little more clearly, but these are the views. The existing porch, you can see these windows on the upper story. These are single pane storm windows. An exterior railing, you can see the mudroom that we'll be demolishing in the back, and that small chimney, which is a boiler flue. It's not a fireplace, and it's left over from a kitchen long ago. So we'll be removing everything from that cornice down and rebuilding that. The screening that we're adapting for this lower section is also common to the front porch. You can see it if you look carefully behind the shrubbery in here. And we're taking the details of the porch columns and the balustrade and incorporating that as part of our fenestration in the spandrel panels in order to create an object on the back of the house. Could have the next slide, please. From the site plan, you can see the existing sleeping porch structure and the stair. We are retaining that footprint. We're expanding very slightly the deck in order to gain a little bit more space and entrance into the breakfast area. A tree planter. This is a piece of an existing patio that will be newly paved, and then a cedar deck into the backyard. And all of these are low ground level structures. The only visible structure from the public way will be this retaining wall, which is an extension of existing concrete wall that will be clad in dolomitic limestone, match the other stone features on the house. Next slide, please. This is the existing roof plan. You can see the nature of the kind of cobbled together roof system and transition that the existing deck has today. The next slide, please. And then our new footprint, which is identical with the exception of squaring off and cleaning up this little entry porch and extending the stair down to a landing with a wing wall. We've incorporated the wing wall on the landing in order to mitigate some drainage issues we have on the site and to make a turn, as you see in the site plan, down and into the planting area and the landscape space in the backyard. Next slide, please. The flat elevations, as you can see, everything from here down, coming off and rebuilding this in its same location. So very much in the spirit of the sleeping porch that's existed on that house, but a little more usable and a little more accessible to the family. Okay. Transoms and casement windows I've described before. These are all going to be all going to be Marvin Ultimate clad units as well. Next slide for me. From the other side, you can see the chimney that's being removed. This is that section of mudroom that we're reclaiming and extending the breakfast room out. So what we've done is created a series of transom and casement windows here, and then infilling the siding along this side of the house. As you can see from this side of the house and from the site photos, the fenestration on the north face of this house is unorganized by nature and was never clearly organized by vertical or horizontal delineation. So we've taken this opportunity to step this structure on the back, and you can see that from the street as you look down the side of the house, it picks up on the rhythm or the lack of rhythm on this facade and blends in nicely to the end. So, all right. And a couple of details just to give you an idea of there's the cornice work that we're retaining that's up here. You can see it running around the rest of the house, chasing the frieze boards around. The detail I described earlier for the skirt board and the clapboard siding. The brickwork, we're going to repoint and restore a lot of this brickwork. Our intention is to match the mortar joints and the detailing on it. And then the paneling I mentioned on the front porch that we're replicating in our construction of the spandrel system. Okay, and then of course the details for the Marvin Landmark Series windows.
Okay. Any questions by commissioners? And can I say thank you? It's a very detailed presentation. So, Stuart,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
have one question. Could you go back to the detail of the windows in the spandrel at the upper portion of the porch? Yeah, that one. So in the lower right-hand corner. By the way, I think it's a very nice job, and this is just a question. It's not an objection. I'm just wondering why the spandrel panels under the central three windows, even though you don't carry the major division down, why they're divided into much smaller module than what occurs on the sides and on the flanking ends.
If you go back to the larger renderings, one of the, and we've talked about this with the client who happens to be quite skilled as an architect himself.
I would say so.
Our intention is actually to emphasize those corners and the verticality. So creating that larger spandrel panel on the outside corners helps us emphasize those two outside corners, creating more of a structural column on those outside, the outside frames. I think as we studied it in the model and looked at it, from the perspective you'll see it from the ground and obliquely, I think it will it will be quite successful. I think the flat elevations don't do it the same service, but again, you'll never see it unless you're falling from a tree somewhere. You'll never see it straight on. So, but that's been our intention. If you look carefully at the proportions, the outside corners are concealing larger structures, so those outside corners are slightly larger. So we've used that to emphasize those exterior corners.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think grouping those could actually make them read as a corner piece.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Stuart, would you want to make a motion?
Okay. I move that we approve for certificate of occupancy the proposal for 1404 Asbury Landmark House in the Ridge Historic District, 22 Pres 02112, to remove a rear portion of the first floor mudroom addition and stair, remove ancillary chimney, alter the fenestration of the north, south, and west elevations, enclose the first floor rear covered porch, construct a new covered entry and stair, wood deck, stone patio, stone walls in the rear yard, and that it meets applicable standards for alteration 1 through 10, and for construction 1 through 8 and 10 through 15.
Stuart, can you amend that for certificate of appropriateness?
Oh, what did I say? Sorry. What?
Sorry, Gary, you're not there yet.
Oh, certificate of appropriateness.
Okay, is there a second?
Did I say occupancy?
Mark,
Yeah.
second, sorry. Mark, second. All in favor?
It's been one of those days.
Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we will move on to the last case, is 2211 Sherman Avenue for the alteration of the east, north, and south elevation fenestration, removal of an existing rear covered entryway, and the construction of an overhead canopy above a new wood deck. So if you could just introduce yourself, and Carlos will obviously assist you with going through the presentation.
Hi, yes, my name is Nathan Beyer. I'm with Fosterdale Architects. And what we have here is a 2.5-story existing brick structure. We're going to be doing a interior renovation primarily, which means some of the window openings at the rear, especially of the house, will be altered. A new deck off of the back. And then largely the existing rear yard will remain the same. I'll point out that there's an existing fence along the outside of the house and a lot of trees that provide a lot of screening from the alleyway. Here we have the alleyway to the north side of the house. All right, next slide. And the interior renovation, like I said, will be primarily in the rear of the house, new kitchen and mudroom. This little tone that's right here is the removal of an existing stair. So there was 2 stairs original to the house, the main stair in the front, and then a service stair in the back. There is currently a covered entry at the back here, which we do not believe to be historic to the original house, and that will be removed, and entrance to the basement, a concrete stairwell will go down. We'll have the wood deck off of the back. All right, next slide. And then on the second floor, where that stair is to be removed, we're going to rework the principal bedroom suite. The bathroom will be located back here, and that again will inform some of our decisions on the exterior. Next slide. So what we have is the rear elevation on the left and the alley elevation on the right, and these are the existing. We see, especially on both of these elevations, no real formal composition to them. we see window openings that have a flat brick arch, and we'll see those in better detail when we go to the photos. But even the original assembly of these windows, one of them at the stair is, jogged. One of them at the stair at the rear entry has been jogged down for that entry landing. And the rear elevation, they are more a product of the interior requirements and less of a formal composition. We do have a little bit of symmetry at the top here. But yes, brick elevations all around. And we will be salvaging the brick at any removed or modified window opening, so we can use that as infill for the proposed. So next slide. So there was originally existing to the house right now a bricked up opening right here. We will be utilizing the existing flat brick arch and make an opportunity to put a window right here at the powder room. And then we will have to, due to a new stair to the basement, we will be infilling brick at two of these lower portions to match existing. The rear elevation, we are taking the opportunity to bring a lot more light and window openings to the main level with double hung here to the kitchen, a new entry into the mudroom, and then a mudroom window. The transom window that we see up here is a product of the primary bathroom suite that's on the second floor. And there was a number of considerations that we had when we ended up with a design like this. One was to put the window on the alley side, but that would have been in the shower. And I will have the owners speak a little bit more to that in a minute. But the best solution that we had for both privacy and letting light into that bathroom was to move this transom window over the sink on the rear facade. So, and then we have a replacement window in an existing opening that's going to be for egress. We're going to use a casement window, and it will have a simulated light dividing bar to match the double hung aesthetic. But we see that there's a little pattern here that shows that it's going to be casement. Any other window on the first floor is going to be double hung as we go around to match the existing nature of these windows. And then the one in the powder room is going to be an awning, just because it doesn't need to have that sort of size. Or again, it speaks to a level of privacy that we're trying to attain for the clients. And here, this is a side elevation. South, this is the one that's facing the neighbors. We have a leaded glass existing in the dining room, and we will be salvaging that and placing it in the new primary bedroom suite. So we can go to the next slide. So that will be bricked over with matching brick, and the leaded glass window now locates itself on the second floor in alignment with the others, with a matching flat brick arch detail. And in the basement area, not very visible from the street because there is a fence that closes off the side of the yard, is your standard window well and egress windows that will allow light, natural light and vent code requirements and egress from the basement area. If we go back to the rear elevation, I'll just also fill in on the deck and canopy, which I know we'll probably discuss and have some questions about. But the material and simplicity that we are going for the clients, the canopy will be clad with AZAC trim, so that'll be a dark trim that matches the existing windows. The windows are currently painted in a dark color. And the underside of this canopy will have natural cedar, and that cedar will then tie itself into the deck and the existing fence. So the existing fence around the house is a cedar fence. And the planters, these elements, we disengage them from the house, so we see a planting box right here, and that has, is clad with cedar boards. Again, it ties itself in with the fence of the house, and it disengages with the house itself to be more of the yard and less of trying to be a part of the house. All right, and then we can go on to the window details, or I think we have some photos. Yes. So here, we have the front of the elevation, no changes. A very formal elevation, well composed, and it's in great shape. There's no program that requires us to make any changes to that. Here we have the rear elevation with that covered entry overhang. It does not appear to be original to the house. It kind of cuts into this window right here. And then we have the existing windows, which have no obvious rhythm or formality to them on this rear elevation. Here's looking down the alley side. We see the existing bricked up opening right there. We're going to utilize that for the new powder room. And then over on this side, or if you could scroll over to the side just a little bit, thank you. Or to the side, there's a little more to the, yeah, thanks, no worries. We see just how private the rear elevation of the house is to the public right-of-way. And the side elevation of the alley, that one isn't an elevation that we didn't want to engage with too many windows on this side because of privacy issues for the owners. All right, next slide. And we will be going with Marvin Ultimate Clad windows with their supplied, manufacturer's supplied brick mold. It's similar in dimension to the brick mold on the house, and we will be setting the windows back a similar amount and having a limestone sill detail similar to the existing house. And then I have Orly, homeowner. She'd like to say a few words just to emphasize, and then we'll take some questions. Thank you, guys.
Before you start, can you please sign up? And also,
I did sign in on this, but
thank you.
My name there too?
yeah, you could.
I'll add my name as well. Good evening. I'm Orly Henry, one of the homeowners. My husband, Ezra Hilton, is here as well. I just wanted to thank everybody for their time tonight and for your consideration. I imagine some people might like to get home to the news, so I'll keep this brief. So Nathan has obviously done a great job of explaining the technical aspects of this. I'm just here to offer a little color commentary from the homeowner perspective. So first, just as a general matter, I want to express our interest in preserving the historic elements of the home. My husband is a structural engineer. I am none of those things. So he takes a personal and professional interest in it. I just have a personal interest. So our approach in developing these plans has always been to retain the historic elements of the home to the extent possible, while also updating it to be more functional for our family. So to that end, we've been working with the Illinois State Historic Preservation Office. It's a little bit of a mouthful, and we're expecting to qualify for the state's Historic Residence Property Tax Assessment Freeze, which is a program for homeowners who, and I quote, undertake sensitive and substantial rehabilitations of historic owner-occupied principal residences. Second, while I understand that the north and east sides of the home are considered public because they're on the alley, as Nathan mentioned, I do want to point out that the visibility to the the home, especially in the back, is quite limited due to the fence that's existing and the tree coverage. So the deck, I don't believe, will be visible at all from the alley, and neither will some of the other elements on the rear elevation that are at issue tonight. And then third, I just think it's important to consider sort of the character of the neighborhood generally. So our micro neighborhood, which is really just a few blocks east of here, is a really nice mix of permanent Evanston residents as well as students who are here much more temporarily. So it's a mix of single-family homes like ours, student housing, and multi-unit buildings. So actually next door to us on one side is a house with 6 Northwestern seniors, and then on the other side of us is the Rookwood Gardens Co-op. So we love that the housing in our neighborhood is so diverse, but we do hope that there's a little bit of flexibility in applying the standards to make the neighborhood amenable to people like us who really want to make the neighborhood their permanent home. I also want to emphasize, as Nathan pointed out, that a bunch of the changes that we're looking to make to our home are actually really driven by our neighbors. So as I mentioned, that co-op that surrounds our building on both the north and the east sides, it's a very large 4-story building, and the rear units have views directly onto, or sometimes it feels like into, our home. So at times it can feel a little bit like living in a fishbowl. So as much as we value our neighbors, we do want to at the same time ensure our privacy. So that's why, for example, we had added that transom window in the primary bathroom so we could let the light in without compromising our privacy, or because the co-op kind of leaves lights on outside all night to avoid letting those lights shine onto us at all times. So with that, I thank you for your time. I will sign in. I'll have Nathan take questions.
I will also like to note that Cade forwarded everyone for record just 3 letters for public comment that were all in favor of the application. So commissioners should have seen those. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I had quite a few questions. I mean, this packet doesn't include a lot of the types of like 3-dimensional drawings or renderings that are typically in packets that give us which I thought was a requirement. I don't know if as part of the review process, more information was requested.
Renderings, I mean, they're recommended, but they're not required, at least. And
I had asked
Yeah,
this
I
question.
actually thought they were,
It was added as a requirement.
yeah, I thought it was added as a requirement.
I had asked for a clarification on this specifically with Cade, because I was looking at we in the office had looked at the requirements, and the determination was that, or from Cade himself, was that the 3-dimensional drawings are for additions, and is that seem to be in line with what you guys might?
I mean,
Understand.
Stuart, you were on the pre-review, so. I know that we have.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of pre-review, and we've done a lot of cases that do not have renderings, a lot of them being window fenestration modifications where we don't require renderings. So.
I think, clearly changing windows is not something that requires a 3-dimensional representation, but I think in terms of any discussion of the canopy, which is held up, I don't know whether it's on threaded steel rods or cables, I think showing that to this group of people in 3 dimensions might have actually helped your argument, or perhaps convinced people that they thought it wasn't appropriate as a thing to add on to the back of the house. But it is in fact addition that to the rear facade that has 3-dimensional implications.
Yeah, I don't feel like the depiction I thought of the rear was very confusing. And, maybe it's just after the great clarity of the last 2 presentations where I knew exactly what it was going to look like when it was done. I don't have much idea what the rear is going to look like. I mean, I don't feel any comfort at all that I know what it's going to look like.
I mean, I absolutely hear what you're saying. My opinion would say that I would disagree. I don't think there's a significant alteration to the structure of the home, and the additions are a canopy and a deck and a planter wall. So I think I was able to interpret it, but how do other commissioners feel on that issue?
I think if it were a more clear-cut case of something that fit with the existing home, it'd be a lot easier to look at this in the 2D drawings. I think given some of the modern qualities of the canopy and the deck, the three-dimensional images, I don't know if they would have helped, but in the absence of those, it's hard for me to get past the modern quality of those two elements right now.
Should we ask why you decided to hold the canopy up on struts or cables rather than build a more conventional or traditional covering for that portion of the back porch?
It was a consideration from the owners themselves. Ezra himself being a structural engineer, it was his sort of note that we could go in that direction. And there isn't necessarily a precedent with this house with any sort of rear porch-like structure. And it's a brick house in a rather simple rectilinear shape. So just extending from that, a simple eyebrow canopy seems appropriate, especially for a rear structure, not something that is not that visible from the public rights of way.
Not to say that I think the canopy will look bad, but there is, in fact, a precedent because there is a covered front porch. Could you show us the elevations again? Because, one of the things that I don't know if there are any horizontal elements that you could tie that canopy into that would make it seem like it had more to do with the house, even though it is a more contemporary element.
Yeah, I mean, as we see it on the back of the house, it does stick to a symmetrical format, so it extends from the house equal distance from both sides, and it does work as an organizing element to all the windows and the doors, the door with the transom above it on the first floor. So that assembly of items, to at least to our eyes in the office, seemed balanced.
The other thing that John commented on was the horizontal window, which you keep referring to as a transom, although it's not a window over another window, so it isn't really a transom, it's just a horizontal window. And this is my personal prejudice. I don't know if the other commissioners share this feeling, but I think horizontal strip windows like that in traditional houses always kind of stick out because they're not part of the vocabulary of either proportion or composition or directionality that is harmonious with the house. I mean, I know there's an issue of privacy in the bathroom, and I looked at the plan and wondered whether or not you could have done a tall, skinny window somehow at one end, or I don't remember if the vanity is a double sink, maybe between the two sinks. The other opportunity to do a traditional double hung horizontal window, although maybe a little skinnier than the ones in the back porch, would be actually over the toilet by simply offsetting the waste stack, or the soil stack rather. So I mean, all of those are possibilities. I know it puts you in the position where you want to cover the lower portion of the window with a curtain or a shade of some sort, but from the outside, I think compositionally and proportionally, it would be sort of a more sympathetic thing to do to the house. And then I know the only comment I would have on the sides where you're removing windows, and again, this is a personal prejudice, and I know it is more expensive to do it, but when you leave the limestone sill and you leave the brick header, and brick in the window, first of all, it's almost impossible to match the brick. So it sticks out rather than recedes. And it's always reminded me of a nasty wound that's healed over.
Yeah, I mean, that's the precedent on the house itself. When we look at the alley photo, there is currently a bricked over opening that's, we're going to open up to make the powder room
Yeah.
Maybe I missed it, but the dining room window that's being removed and closed in, what was the reason, the functional reason for that?
The kitchen range will be in that region on the first floor. And we saw it as an opportunity to take and salvage that window instead of just take it out of the project altogether and put it on the second floor. And that's actually a good point, that window itself does have horizontality. If we go to the south elevation, which is up 2 slides, or down 2 slides, I apologize. There we go. So that does have, it's a double square. If we were to utilize some sort of language like that over the vanity, like to further divide that horizontal window, could the opening be horizontal itself, but the windows be broken down into a smaller subsect? Because that's what we're looking at.
I think that's a possibility. Stuart, I'm glad you brought up the point of the brick panel in lieu of a window, because I think you could have used that trick at that new rear horizontal window as well. You could have presented a double wide window opening, full height like the other ones, and then had a window in the upper portion and a brick or a wood panel infill on the lower one. But what I want to ask about is the location of the header on it. Is that header is so much higher than the adjacent, I assume, bedroom window, and I know that you're looking for privacy, and I respect that. Is there really like the 18-inch to 24-inch difference between those 2 windows that it looks like on the elevation?
Well, yeah, the horizontal window will be tight to the ceiling on the inside in order
Okay.
to get the vanity and the mirror over the vanity to function.
And how high is the adjacent bedroom window off the floor?
I mean, the head of it?
Yes.
The head, okay,
Yes.
yeah, not the sill. It's throughout the house, I believe, 7
7 feet.
feet, yeah.
Okay. And how tall is the horizontal window that you were putting in? About 18 inches?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you started at 7 feet and you went down 18 inches, you'd be at about 5.5 feet, the sill point, which is not conducive to a mirror, of course.
Yeah, correct.
Can I question?
So it's,
Nathan, can I just ask a question about the owners with the potential getting the assessment freeze? Have you talked to the state yet and presented your plans to them? Have you received any feedback from them?
Yeah, so the owners are going through that with Susan Benjamin, and largely with like a light touch from us. And do you have a progress on that?
Can you please come to the mic and make sure you sign up your name too, please?
Sorry, it's a revolving circuit.
Okay.
We had submitted our original plans to them, and I believe we received, I think what's called a preliminary opinion. Do you remember what?
There were a few comments, but nothing major, and certainly they didn't really address any fenestration. It was primarily focused on finishes on the interior, trim, things like that, things of that nature. There's a fireplace, approaching the fireplace, but none of the comments from the state really addressed the windows or frankly the back of the house, anything exterior.
Okay. The reason I ask is because I had some experience working with the state, and I understand maybe there's different staff now. In the opportunities I had to work with them, they were very strict about alterations to the exterior, meaning that, you don't touch it, or if you have to, it has to be very compatible with the rest of the material or the style of whatever feature you're working on, like in this case, windows. So that's why I asked, because right now you're getting some feedback from the commission about that particular window that is horizontal in the back, and how you are also treating some of the openings with brick. And so I just wish you, the best, to be honest, because I don't know if the results would be something that I would have expect differently if you haven't received any comments. But that's in the past. There's different people apparently there. So just wait and see, because right now what the commission is trying to address is meeting the standards that we have under the ordinance rather than something else. The other clarification I'd like to make for your benefit is that we don't consider fences and vegetation or trees as permanent obstructions to the view. That's why we review additions to the rear from the alleys. And the alley is also a public way. So anything that is visible from the public way, regardless of the fence or landscaping, is subject to review. But anyway, I just want to make sure that you were on the same page with the commission. And as far as being flexible, I think that the question is whether or not you meet the standards. I think the commission is trying to give you some feedback that will help you to continue working on your design. Maybe it will be good to wait for the actual response from the state, so that if in fact the state is okay with the way you present it, they are the ones that we report to as a city. We are a certified local government with the state, and we report to them. And they enforce the Secretary of Interior's standards for historic preservation, which are very strict compared to what we currently have in our ordinance, is modeled after, but not necessarily as strict as the Secretary of Interior's standards. So I would recommend that you get that response from them as soon as possible, so that we are sure that what you're proposing is not an issue for them. But I don't know necessarily the commission here would agree with it.
I would like to just follow up on that, because I have had conversations with them about my own project, which is my own home, which is also a landmark, very recently. And they are much more strict than we are. So I would like to just ask really quick, just for my own clarification. This horizontal window in the back, you showed that to them and they didn't say anything?
I mean, I think so. We gotta go back to the exact communication. Susan Benjamin has been running this process for us, and she shared the preliminary plans, which included this. This has been part of the plans from the get-go. So I would have to assume so, but I can't be 100% sure.
Sure. So the question that I have then for Carlos, I guess, would be if we were to approve this, but then the state were to tell them that they had to change it, would they then have to, in order to get their tax credits, which they want to get, which is great, would they have to come back to us in order to get approval for whatever the state is requiring them to do as changes? Was I clear?
Yes. I think, in my opinion, the state will probably require minimal alterations. So I will bring to the attention of the chair, to show the chair whether or not those alterations are actually bringing back the original design. I think there's a fine line between having to return to the commission, because basically there will be less alterations than what they're proposing, and potentially could be done administratively because they're asking for less rather than more. I don't necessarily want to stop your project from moving forward. My experience is that they actually, if the commission were to approve these today or in the future as submitted, that they will not. So that's what I want you to be aware, because we are only looking at the powers and duties of the commission locally under the preservation ordinance in the city of Evanston, whereas you are asking for a benefit for the assessment freeze. So obviously we wish you well. If they agree with that, then the commission has to make a decision. If they think that the horizontal window is appropriate, the question is, will you guys will approve that?
Right. I just use a horizontal window as an example since that was what we had been talking about. But so is there possibility that they will have to come back to us if what we approve is not approved by the state later?
If they want to benefit from the assessment freeze, they
Right.
need to comply with the ruling of the state.
Right,
We don't have any power on granting the assessment freeze.
right,
We are reviewing the same address, the same project. We might approve locally, but if they are seeking something that is from the state, they have the rules, which is basically the Secretary of Interior standards, right?
so.
Again,
we're-
I don't want you to discourage or any means or make you feel bad about the project because, it's your project. I just want to make sure that you're aware that circumstances change. And I'm saying is that I had experience with the state, but not with the same staff. When I had a chance to work with them, they were very, very strict about it. So just for your information.
Sure, so, I mean, if I could, let me ask you this, I mean. Yeah. Let me just ask this, I mean, does it make sense, it sounds like what you're saying is maybe that we need to deal with the state first and then possibly come back?
I think that if the state agrees with your project, I think the commission, in my opinion, has more confidence that the standards that they are enforcing comply with the Secretary of Interior standards. So, because our ordinance was modeled after those standards, so it's a higher level of review.
Carlos, does the state not require local approval as part of their requirements? No? I know they used to a long time ago.
Well, my experience only has been when we approve and they approve, and when we approve, they did not approve. That's my experience. It doesn't mean that we approve, if we approve as a commission, that they will approve it automatically. It doesn't mean that. That's what I'm trying to emphasize here, that our local ordinance is what we are following, whereas the Secretary of Interior, so that's what they have to make those decisions for the different programs they have.
But they still can't get a permit for the work unless we approve. So
Correct.
the improvements are not going to happen, and the assessment freeze is not going to happen if we don't approve it, because we're on the path to permithood.
So
Right, I mean,
basically,
they're-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, they're here now, so we could go ahead and make a decision, but that doesn't mean that what they're going to actually, if they want to go forward with the tax freeze paperwork, that doesn't mean that what we're approving is what they're going to end up doing. And the difference between what we're approving and what they end up doing could trigger another review of some sort.
Could
Well-
trigger, but I will be surprised it's more than what they're asking. I think it's
Yeah.
going to be less.
The
Right.
other thing that we could do is to continue this and to have it reviewed administratively after they come back with the state, because if the state makes them make changes to the design for the tax freeze, which I'm sure they want to get,
Yeah.
then it would simplify the process of getting let me make sure I say this right, the certificate of appropriateness, if it was an administrative review rather than a reapplication to the entire commission.
I will say that it will depend what the state is asking. If it is asking to not make so many alterations that are not compatible with our standards, then I think that Kate and I can talk about it and consult with the chair, and hopefully we can do it administratively. That's the idea, right? Because we don't want to stop you from moving forward. But I would be surprised they will ask you to do things that are not compatible or contrary to the standards that we have. I think they're going to try to minimize those standards. So that would be my take on it.
I think if it's not too much effort for us right now, I think if we can possibly give some good feedback to the applicants, I think if we can just continue to discuss, maybe not get into like a long, in-depth deliberation, but I do think we can give them value so that if the state does come back and ask you, you have some time to think about some things that very likely will be similar comments. So if everybody's okay with that, I would like to at least spend a little time to discuss, and then possibly we continue the case if that's what seems to be, the consensus. But I do think we should do a little bit of our due diligence of reviewing it while they're here.
So is this commissioner discussion now?
Yeah, I think if you guys want to take a seat, I think we can go through and look through the elevations go ahead, Beth.
I
Did
do
you have a
have-
question for
yeah.
them before
No.
they sat down?
For the
Sorry.
architect, just a clarification question about the rear deck.
Yes.
Are all of the railings wood as well? Is that the cedar that you had mentioned, or is it just the floor that's wood?
The floor and the planters are the cedar,
Okay,
and then the railing is called view rail. So it is like the steel posts with a wood cap that matches the rest of the deck.
and the horizontal members are,
Steel rod or steel
oh,
cable.
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, and then can you just describe the materials and the look of the canopy? Just,
Yeah.
I was
yeah.
reading here and the details a little bit more of it, and is a little bit more enlightening, but can you just describe it for us as well?
Yeah, sure. So it is a projecting steel canopy that has the steel rods, and it helps to go to the rear elevation. So we have 4 of the steel connections and the canopy centered around the rear of the elevation. There will be a trim element that wraps around the outside, which will be dark to match the windows. And then the underside of the canopy will be cedar, tongue and groove, with some lighting elements.
So I think one thing that will help the commission understand this better is that, and I do get the sense that the case is probably going to be continued, which I don't think is, if you continue to talk with the state, I think it will just all kind of work in conjunction with each other. But I do think that will be very helpful to give us some sections through the railing and a section through the canopy, because the idea of doing a steel rod with like a wood cap, like those types of profiles and what those cross sections look are going to matter to this commission. And definitely the canopy of like, how does that profile work with the elements that you're talking about, and what do those rods look like? I think that will help a lot of the commissioners understand the rear, if they can see how those pieces are going together and what those cross sections are.
Could we see the photograph of the front of the house and the front porch again?
Sorry, I was going to ask a question on that. It's-
Okay, thank you.
We're already there.
Go ahead, Sarah.
It was on the other drawing that we were on before, so just,
In the back?
yeah.
Okay, sorry, I thought
Is-
this was for the photograph.
Oh, yeah,
He did.
Stuart did.
Okay.
But I wanted to just, so since we were taking a closer look at this drawing, I realized that in addition to the questions that we had about the canopy and the deck, there's something going on under the deck? There's like an opening? So there's the floor of the deck, and then there's something beneath it.
We're looking at the side elevation. That would be the guardrail. That
No, the proposed rear elevation.
that's a raised planter bed.
At the bottom is a planter bed, at the very bottom? Okay.
There's just
Can
a
you- can
planter
you-
bed next to the wall that's on the stair, and then the deck is on the
And what-
opposite side.
So that's,
I
is
mean-
that the same material as the more vertical planter,
Yeah.
but just a long, or, okay.
And
What's above it?
there's an opening there,
It appears that there's stairs that go down under the deck.
or something under there.
There's a basement.
Okay, I think you understand why this would be better with a three-dimensional representation. We'd understand where that planter bed is in relation to the underside of the deck. Is it directly under the edge, and then, you're letting light down into the space underneath the deck, because it seems that there's a stair going down there, and then a basement window, which looks like it's been filled in with glass block. And I think it's hard to understand exactly what all of this is in a two-dimensional representation.
I would would second Stuart's desire to see 3D views.
It's because of the railing and all I mean,
Are we in the commissioner discussion now? I'm anxious.
if I may, one more comment. This is for the owners as well. So if I were to stay, based on my experience, and again, please just take it as a conversation here. If I were to do something with the rear and that window there, and you're saying we need privacy, which is understandable, instead of having the horizontal window, if I were to stay, I will say, well, why don't you use some type of glass that is not clear on that double hung. I don't have the benefit of the plan where that window is, in a particular location that cannot be still. But what I'm trying to tell you is that they have other alternatives that perhaps address your privacy and get you the approval from the state. That's what I'm trying to tell you, okay? That's it, thank you.
Are there any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you. So, discussion, John.
Thank you. Is my microphone working? Everyone hears me okay? Okay.
Yeah.
With regard to the window openings, I think that on a lot of these traditional homes, we're used to seeing the front and the rear elevations, there's some order and some symmetry, and the long side elevations tend to be a little looser. They have more functional requirements that require that. Sometimes there's a stairwell. Anyway, with regard to that rear elevation, it's just a little too jarring, I think. And I'm not going to design it for you. It would be nice to see the header of the horizontal window come down. I don't know if everybody else would like this, but if that meant raising the adjacent bedroom window up a little, maybe one comes down a little, one goes up a little, in order for you to get the privacy and a decent sized window over the mirror height, I think that would be good. The double side-by-side window solution might work, and I also think it would be worth considering having the sill come all the way down to the typical second floor story sill and then filling it in with a brick panel below this horizontal window. So those are all possibilities.
Could we see the second floor plan again for a moment?
Is that the second floor? Okay. Sorry, I cannot read it from here, so I'm just asking to make sure.
Well, I think what you were saying with, like, I guess that's where the mirror is with that horizontal. I mean, there's on another facade,
Gee,
they're replacing a window, but they're keeping the lintel of the window and they're bricking it in.
Yeah.
So that would be kind of a similar.
You know, what would happen if you put the window where the toilet is? It would be symmetrical, or could be symmetrical with the other window, or if you could sort of reconsider how you enter the bathroom, maybe you can actually flip the toilet and the double vanity somehow into a different location on the other wall, which means you don't have to give up an additional 6 inches because of the plumbing on the exterior wall. I would encourage you just to sort of run through some alternatives that might allow you more flexibility in terms of putting windows in the bathroom area that would then give you an opportunity to do something compositionally with that back wall.
I'm kind of on the fence about the canopy. I think I really need to see a 3D view of that. I'm leaning towards it's just a little too modern, but the house is eclectic, and I don't think we have to obsess over matching anything. And in that regard, I don't think I object to the deck at all. It's a separate entity that is attached to the house, but it's kind of, it feels okay doing its own thing.
So I noted that this is a contributing building, right? So the rear facade of a contributing building. So, you know, I'm probably going to be okay with the canopy because it's the rear facade of a it's not a landmark. It's not the front facade of a contributing building. It's the back of a house that is just part of a district. But what they were calling the transom window, the horizontal, that's a little bit, that could be reworked.
So I'm assuming if you're okay with the canopy, that you're okay with the horizontal steel railings for the deck.
I would want to, I'm assuming we're going to see some more details of that, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. I would not feel comfortable saying yes to that right now with limited information, but I am indicating to you all that I would not be opposed to it as an idea. Just keeping it kind of limited would be fine, but that horizontal window could be reworked.
Can I ask a question? You've got existing bathroom next to a stair and then a bathroom that backs up to that, and you're taking the fixtures out. Does that become a laundry room, or what is that former bathroom to become?
Yeah, the PCL stands for principal closet.
Oh, okay. So the principal bedroom is the one in the corner, and the whole idea is to somehow get a walk-in closet and a nice bathroom for them, but to also have that bathroom double in a pinch to serve the other three bedrooms, right? Because if you were to enter the bathroom from the principal bedroom, it would give you a tremendous amount of flexibility in terms of reconfiguring the location of the other plumbing fixtures.
There's a sliding pocket door right here, which creates the suite on the back. So this bath is for the front, and then this bath is for the rear.
I think we need to focus on the elements. So what I am hearing is that the horizontal window in the bathroom on the rear elevation, we would ask that you take a look at that and see if you can change at least like the elevation, the configuration, possibly change your layout. Look at those different options. Make it more compatible with the rest of the facade. We would like to see sections through the railing, through the canopy. I think that
And
there.
may I ask, with the canopy and the deck, if we could see photos or samples, not a physical sample, but an image of how the steel and the wood are working together. I have to say, I really like the concept of the steel and the wood deck and then the steel and the wood canopy. I think that's a nice grouping. And I kind of like how I don't mind, typically I would have minded the horizontality, like kind of just introducing this really jutting out horizontal element, but the fact that the coins, you know, on each of the corners of the building have, you know, this almost step stair thing, I think kind of just plays off of that nicely. But I think it would help if we could just see some of the imagery. I'm almost there, but just a little bit more. It would really solidify it.
So product images, section cuts, a 3D rendering if you're capable of doing that, so that I think it's just going to make it smoother so that people can understand the spaces. And then I think if you can continue and if you're okay are you okay to come back? I think the next meeting is actually moved up to the first week. of
December 6th is a week before the regular.
Does that give you enough time? Do you think you might want more time with the holiday season? Yeah, of course. Are there any other commissioner items other than those items? Think that, is everybody comfortable that that should give us enough to be able to review it? Okay.
Carlos, is it just a point of education, I guess? If the meeting is moved up a week and they have to submit their materials at some point before the next meeting, how much time does this actually give them?
As long as we have time to put it on the website, which is the Friday before the meeting.
Okay.
And as long as we can
Thanksgiving.
provide that to you sooner as possible, I think we can work with that, because this is not new. It will
Right.
be revised or, addressing your concerns, but it will depend whether or not they feel that they have enough time to.
But the Friday before you said
So,
gotta go to
let
Friday
me just look
before
at my calendar here.
the Friday after Thanksgiving?
Yeah,
And it won't go to pre-review even before that?
yeah. So,
What is the consensus that you,
We'll be doing a little bit of rebudgeting with
Okay.
the House, so the January
Okay.
meeting wouldn't be the worst thing for us. It
Okay.
could Have us regroup.
do we know what date the
yeah,
January?
that would be January 10. If there's anything different, I will let you know.
So
Sometimes
that-
things change, like the meeting in December was changed from the original date.
And the
But we will
December-
let you know.
yeah.
The other thing I will,
December 6th.
yeah,
And 7 days before, we'd have to submit?
for the January or for
For December.
December, okay. So if you submit after Thanksgiving, on the 28th,
Mhm.
So if we continue this today, though, we will typically say the date of the meeting.
Okay.
So we can continue it to the December meeting, and then what would happen is if you aren't prepared, I think we would continue it again. We can continue it
Right.
twice.
we can move the meeting if necessary.
We're going to go with the January.
Okay.
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 Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Have we given you enough information that you feel, okay, I want to make sure that you feel, and obviously if this works well with Susan Benjamin and your efforts with SHPO, I think anything that they provide back, you can report back to us, and I think that will only obviously help the whole process. And sure. Okay, so is there a commissioner that would,
I'll make a motion.
thank you, Carl.
Make a motion to continue 2211 Sherman Avenue in the Northeast Historic District, 22 Pres 0220, to the January 10th meeting.
Is there a second? Beth seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is 8-0. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next order of business was the approval of the October 11th meeting minutes. Did you receive any revisions?
I have not received any comments, and I don't think Kate had received any comments. No. I would think that he would have let me know, because I've been in touch with him.
So is a commissioner willing to make a motion to approve the minutes? Go ahead, Beth. Is there a second? Mark seconds. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? So Lecca
I'm
and
abstaining as
Sarah are
well.
gonna- So that's 6
Six.
ayes and 2 abstentions. Okay. Next item are under staff reports is an update on the legacy business program. Since Cade is not here, Carl is going to go ahead and give us an update. I do also have Cade's email if you wanted to read his email, or if you just want to go
Well, I
ahead
was
and.
just
All
going to
right.
summarize what his email said.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've all, included in the packet tonight is the working document that the Legacy Business Program Working Group has put together over several meetings. And included in that is like the purpose and goal statement, as well as the eligibility criteria. But Kate wanted to note that the section about financial support and incentives is kind of still more in a draft form right now, and that would be more developed by the Economic Development Department of the city, not the preservation or planning side. And the focus of the update is basically on the program administration section, which is kind of, as the program is developed, the commission is going to be looped in moving forward of like the progress of the program. Let's see, and basically, oh yeah, here. So it goes over the Legacy Business Working Group. It's administered by this group. It's a permanent subcommittee of the Economic Development Committee. And basically, the composition of the group is going to be 2 members of the Economic Development Committee, 2 members of the Preservation Commission, a staff member from Planning and Zoning, a staff member from Economic Development, and an at-large member. And if something to consider too is that the commission could revise its rules and have potential liaison positions formed for the 2 positions for the Preservation Commission on this working group. There are associate members. The ordinance allows for that, so I guess that could allow for those people to serve in this position. And right now, the working group is set to, at its next meeting, to review the submissions to the RFP for a website and logo design. And let's see, there's been 12 submissions to the RFP. Not sure in what combination of who was, because you could respond to the RFP just for the website or just for the logo or both. So I'm not really sure what. And so then ultimately the website and the program are planned to be launched in spring of 2023, and there's an initial list of 32 pilot candidate businesses. So is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think we're just excited to see the RFP designs, and I think the next meeting is next week. And Carl will have been much more involved. And so if there are any commissioners that would like to be more involved in this, you can reach out to Kate or myself and let us know, or Carlos, of course, if you wanted to start to go to some of these legacy business meetings. They're usually on Thursday afternoons. There has been talk about switching that time period, but I think they would welcome, as we start to dive a little bit more into the financial and like the valuation criteria, once we get past the website and the RFP stuff, I think that's the initial launch focus.
I was curious, so you said there are 32 potential candidates. When I read that, business has to be 20 years or older and some of the criteria, what was the overall pool approximately? Do you guys remember?
Carl put it together.
So, and initially the survey was, I think we initially, just in a rough survey, found 200 businesses that were at least 20 years old, ranging from 20 all the way to over a century. But I think that of the 32, it's actually kind of a cross-section of the city. I think all 9 wards are represented. There's a couple century old businesses, as well as some of the younger ones too. So it's kind of and then also types of businesses. I mean, there's everything from a funeral home, chocolate, dining, service station. So it's like all types of businesses are represented.
And we've had a couple of these owners come into the working group and actually come in and talk to us to get their perspective on it. So it's been a very interesting, very exciting endeavor, because I think everybody really wants to see it happen in Evanston.
That was actually going to be my question, how much interaction or engagement you've had from the businesses that are are you obligated to get their buy-in formally?
So there's the nomination forms for them to nominate themselves.
Okay.
Obviously, we've reached out to these initial 32, I think, to ask for working group. There's been some strong, supporters from that initial 32 and beyond that. And Councilmember Kelly has been very active in getting that word out and talking to a lot of the businesses in the city. So I think that there's been a lot of energy into the program, and it's been getting
Well, and I think one of the things too that one of the businesses brought up was this idea of a mentorship program, so that some of the older businesses that have been around and are more established can serve as a mentor for some of the younger businesses that maybe aren't even considered legacy yet, or some of the younger legacy businesses as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see the next meeting, what the RFP stuff comes out. So we'll update you, Carl and I will update you once we get more on that at our next December meeting. So with that, if there's no other questions on the legacy business program, why don't we move into the discussion items, and we'll talk about the Preserve 2040 long-range plan. Sarah, why don't you maybe update on Cade made some changes from what was sent last time, and he made a couple notes of what specifically he changed, just so that everybody can be up. He also mentioned that if we can talk about it today, and then possibly, I think, aim for December's meeting to put it, I think that is the ideal timeline for the long-range plan. So, Sarah, you want to go ahead and...
So I'm just reading from Cade's note. So there were two big changes between the last time you all saw it and now. One was the added descriptive content under each initiative, which further explains what is being proposed. This was something that, we asked him to do, and it helps with implementation. His comment is, leaves less room for individual interpretation, which I think is helpful. If you read those, they're actually, it's not like one sentence. It's like a full paragraph for each one. And I think my sense of it, and Carl, I think, since you were in the room when we were talking about each one of these, but my sense of it was that Cade did a very good job of summarizing the conversations that we were having. Stuart, you were there for part of that too, the discussions of these initiatives. So that was my sense of it. And then number two was he revised the implementation timeline for the initiatives to create a more, what he called scaled and realistic implementation timeline, which I agree. And then he added a chart in the last page that shows the division between the commission and other entities, which if you just go all the way down to the end.
Yep, it's the chart with two.
Yeah, so with this chart here with the yellow boxes, that's showing, the time frames and so on. And then all the way at the end, just above this picture.
Above this picture, yeah.
I think it's above the picture.
Let's see.
Right here. It shows the sort of division of labor between those of us, the commission projects, and then projects that are suggested by the plan, but not necessarily going to be within the sort of framework of what we are doing. He says the previous timeline was very front-heavy and aggressive in its approach. This is more balanced and realistic. It does have a kind of nice shape to it, where the first bar or column on the graph is ongoing. So really what you're looking at is the second one here. And it starts off a little strong and then kind of evens, kind of goes down and then climbs up again for all of us. So it's pretty reasonable. Showing that we are considering the limited volunteer capital of the commission. One other important note is that although the implementation timeline changed, the priority levels agreed upon by the subcommittee members did not change. So that was clear, that comment that Cade makes is clear to me. Does everyone understand the difference?
So in the chart, you'll see the different initiatives with different timelines, and at the extreme right, you will see the priority depending on the initiative. It's low or high or medium. And then at the top, you see the 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 years plus. And then here, who's responsible for the initiative. So it's a combination of sometimes two groups or more, or just the commission itself. I think the committee has created a very good program to follow. And the interesting thing is that the ongoing initiatives are attainable because obviously we're working on them on a monthly basis. And the other ones that are in the high priority, some of them are not immediate, probably takes time to get those. But overall, I think it's like he says, it's a balance or better balanced timetable. And there will be an evaluation for the commission, maybe a yearly evaluation to see where you are, what the challenges you have, and whether or not there's any alterations to the timeline, because things happen that are out of control that need to adjust. So it's a flexible as well. It's not set in stone necessarily, but it's a good plan. So
I had
Mhm.
a quick question about priorities and things. And first of all, I've been absent the last couple months, and so I haven't had the chance to say, as I've been watching from afar, this is like a fabulous, huge amount of work, and it's been really well put together. But on the priorities, things that have other partners, the city or consultants or whatever list as the responsible party, do we have any way of knowing if their priority level on these things is similar to our priority level? Are there any of those discussions with the other parties?
Not as far as I know. This was, the responsible party was added so that it was clear that the commission was not intending on doing all of these. That this was not our work plan. It was a plan for the city overall. Now, whether the responsible parties that are listed here are going to come to it in that same way is not clear to us.
So
As far as I know.
I
Carl?
think that the last time Cade presented this to us, I think he did say that he has had a couple meetings with the History Center or Design Evanston or any of those other organizations. I don't know if he's formally asked them, are these the same, priorities? But yeah, I guess he's started to meet with these organizations about this, so yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I should have been more clear. They did not come to our meeting and sit with us and talk about it. I'm sorry, I thought that's what you were asking.
Yeah, well, so there's been some conversation, but not
I do think Cade has been, and Carlos have been, obviously with the city of Evanston and the other, the economic, development. I think there's been a lot of talk of that. And I do think that they've been talking with a lot of the partner organizations, but it's not been formally,
Can I ask a question? Did any of these people submit comments that
I was
then
going to
got?
just talk
Okay.
about that. To answer your question, Aleka, I've been working with the History Center, the WCTU, Shorefront, Preservation League of Evanston, and as a consortium, we're trying to put together this group so that we can all help each other in our goals. And initially, the primary motivation was to develop some type of award program that would not be just the Preservation Commission doing the Design and Preservation Awards, but something that will involve a good cross-section of the community. And they have responded in a positive way. We're just kind of trying to find our ways with how we're going to work as a consortium without necessarily tying our hands from one to another. So everybody is free to do what they want to do, but at the same time, we will support each other. So Kate has shared the Preservation 2040 with them and asked for comments as well, at least in 2 occasions. And he has received some comments, not from everybody, but my understanding is that they're okay with the plan. They have not submitted anything saying, no, this is not working for us. As a matter of fact, maybe they make comments to enhance or improve certain things rather than not. So as I get into this consortium more and more, I think we would like to recruit also Design Evanston and the Mitchell Museum and any other organization that might be interested. Right now, we're in the inception of trying to figure out, for instance, if we're going to do the awards program, what would that mean for these organizations? You know, maybe we can have a program that is either every year or every other year. Maybe one year will be more heavy in historic preservation, another year might be more heavy in heritage or something like that. It doesn't really matter that much other than that we're working together in something that is common ground. So yes, this has been shared with them. I have not received comments that were, you know, detrimental to the plan. That's it.
I think if my memory serves me right on that email, I think Cade was hoping that any additional comments that commissioners may have between now and our December meeting regarding the long-range plan get directly sent to him. He will incorporate them, review and incorporate, and then I think the hope is that in December we can move forward on this and put it into place. So if commissioners have any thoughts on that, if that seems okay, good. Then we can get it addressed before the end of the year. I think that that's good timing. I think it's very well done, so I think it will be a great asset for everyone that's on the commission now and to be on the commission in future years. So
I wanted to just speak to that really quickly. The timeline for this is such that basically almost all of us will not be on the commission, in 10+ years. So these paragraphs that Cade added are really helpful as a kind of institutional knowledge statement going forward. And I thought, if you all have a chance to look at those and read them and comment on them, that would be, because they're, new. That would be pretty helpful, because those might end up being kind of crucial in 5 years from now.
If I may add to what you're saying, Sarah, I think this is basically the legacy of this current commission to future commissions. If you adopt this plan, other commissions will take the mantle and hopefully follow through. So it's a very important document. We didn't have one since the 80s, which was almost 100% done, which is a good, a good comment for the commission. It's a very challenging job, that what you have, in my opinion. Not everybody concurs all the time. There's always all kinds of opinions about what is preservation, what should be. But I think that this commission has persevered, and it has provided excellent feedback to the community. You can see the results of the commission's work, and I think it's the biggest return for a very modest investment, meaning that you are volunteers. I was looking at the time that I've been working with the city. I think we probably review about, at the minimum, 6,000 projects. Could be 9,000 projects. I mean, being modest about that, from administrative to full commission. So you have a great legacy, in my opinion. So congratulate for that.
Thank you. If there are no other discussion topics, one thing I wanted to ask real quick, Carlos, is what is the timeline for the character district information when we went through the downtown.
Oh, I think
What does
Kate
that
is
hold for-
preparing that for the next meeting.
Okay, perfect.
I
So,
sent him all the photos I taken,
Okay.
and he's preparing that information for you, I believe for December.
excellent. Okay, so that will be on the discussion list for
That will be my
December-
hope. If not, I'll let you know.
On January?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other items that commissioners want to? No? Carl?
I move to adjourn the Preservation Commission meeting.
Is there a second? Alok, a
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.